Hello, podcast listeners. You are now listening to the Coffee, Health, and Science podcast. I'm your host, Jordan River, and I want to thank you for tuning in today. Such a pleasure to have Dr. Coffee back on the phone. How you doing, Dr. Steve Hellshine?
Jordan, it's another day above ground living the dream, my friend.
It is, and what a lovely blessing that is. Got my coffee going right here, slurping it down for a moment. Let me get all juiced up for the show. Now, Steve, when people bring up the health benefits of coffee, we've said this before, a lot of people are stunned. Some people say, oh, I've heard about dementia, or, oh, I've heard about liver disease maybe. But cancer, coffee and cancer, what do you think the common consensus among Americans is, at least, between the relationship of coffee and cancer right now?
So it's really interesting that you bring this up and that we have this podcast today, Jordan, because I had a very interesting conversation with a group of researchers today. And we came to the conclusion after discussing where coffee and health is that it's the old notion of garbage in, garbage out. Mm-hmm. So when you lump all coffees into one barrel and you try and look at one of the store shelf brands of instant coffee, I'm making this up, but I'm trying to dumb it down for everybody so that if you really are using not good coffee, I'm trying not to defame the store shelf brands, but if you're using lousy coffee, let's face it, and you're trying to do your research with that, and you're making your instant coffee with tap water, and you're trying to figure out whether or not it helps health, it's garbage in, garbage out. And these scientists and I today were discussing this whole thing, came to the consensus that if coffee is a medicinal grade coffee, then it does help with cancer, and that most people don't understand it. So we have a big education movement to move forward with. So
reshaping the common consensus for sure. I mean, there was a time when a lot of people thought that coffee caused cancer, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of misunderstanding about coffee. Part of it is because what we call coffee, which might be tap water with lousy coffee, with a lot of sugar, with bad fats, not even good fats. And we want to call that coffee. Well, that's not coffee. That's not coffee as a medicinal herb. So we have problems with people, looking at that and thinking this is what they're talking about. No, it's not. And we're going to get into some of the cancer risk reductions today, you and I.
Mm-hmm. But like you said, okay, this is an interesting thought that I don't think I've ever heard anyone bring up when it comes to coffee and health. You go get these mixed drinks from some of these big chains, and we're talking there's whipped cream in there, a scoop of ice cream, 3 pumps of this. I mean, all that stuff must obliterate any possible health benefits and just send your blood sugar skyrocketing. I mean, we're not talking about those drinks, right?
No, we're not talking about those drinks, and we're not talking about the types of coffee that are over roasted or the types of coffee that have mold. We're talking about something similar to Purity Coffee's mission, which is to make a medicinal grade coffee. But since you bring up what you just brought up, I do have some stuff to share with you. So a latte, which is 1 or 2 shots of espresso topped with steamed milk, a small one contains about 200 calories. Mm-hmm. A large one is about 340 calories. Mm-hmm. The fat content of a small latte is 10 grams, 10.5 grams. A large is about 18 grams of fat. Mm. So if you're using a poor quality milk when you're making it,
yes,
and especially if you're lactose intolerant, you're not doing yourself any favors.
Yeah, that's a good point.
A cappuccino, which is 1 shot of espresso topped with steamed milk, then foamed, So that's about 122 calories. The large is about 200 calories, about 6.5 grams of fat for a small, about 11 grams of fat for a large.
Mm-hmm.
We'll skip Americano. We'll skip a plain espresso, which is how I love my coffee.
Right.
A purity espresso, sets my world on ease. A vanilla frappuccino,
Oh
which
boy.
I guess is a Starbucks brand. Who doesn't love a vanilla frappuccino? You blend ice in, you put in milk, you put in
Oh
flavored
boy.
vanilla syrup. So a small is about 350 calories and about 13 grams of fat, while a large, which is if you're going to get a vanilla frappuccino, you might as well get the large one, right? Because it's so much blended ice, you're thinking there's nothing to it. Well, it's 530 calories and about
Whoa.
20 grams of fat, of which 10 grams of it are saturated fat.
Right. And that's the worst stuff for you. And not to mention all the sugar content, and it goes up and up the more flavorings you add. The seasonal stuff tends to be the worst, which is like disturbing.
Yeah. So, I was standing in a coffee line. I was at the train station yesterday. I was standing in the coffee line, and somebody ahead of me ordered a mocha. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, it's 75% steamed milk. It comes with about 3 shots of espresso. And then I counted. She put in 4 pumps of chocolate
Whoa.
and then put on whipped cream.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's 25 grams of fat right there, of which 15 grams are saturated fat,
Jeez.
and and 41 grams of sugar.
Wow. That's like a Diet Coke, right? I'm sorry, that's like a Coca-Cola, right?
It's more than a Coca-Cola. It's more than
Whoa.
and it's more than even a hot chocolate. And if you boost yourself up to the white chocolate mocha,
Oh my
then
God.
it's 630 calories.
Wow.
I mean, you're not doing yourselves any favors by drinking this stuff and thinking it's healthy. We've got to be real. We've got to call a spade a spade.
That's incredible.
And
Wow.
if you're drinking 4 cups of Java, then not any old Java will do. It's got to be a good quality Java. And as far as I'm concerned, my research shows me that purity is it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure I'd get arguments from other companies out there, and I'm sure there are other companies that are good.
Right. I mean, we're
But
we're striving though. That's what we do. We're doing our best, and much like you, Dr. Coffee, we're here to help people. That's the number one thing. Purity is great and everything, but we're here to change minds. And if we can stop people from consuming 41 grams of sugar, you're right. A Coca-Cola has 39 grams of sugar. So here, someone thinks they're going to go and get a coffee instead of drinking a soda because it's good for them, and they're going to get 41 grams of sugar plus all the other weird stuff and whipped creams, and like you said, like mixing in the other fats from like ice cream in there. I think that this would blow a lot of people's minds wide open, and it's just like, why not drink a Coke? They'd look at you like, huh? You know what I mean?
yeah, exactly. And we're talking about drinking between 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day. So if you're looking at 70 calories from just the syrup, and you're then thinking, okay, that's 5 times 70, that's 350 calories a day just from the syrup
Right.
that they're putting
The
in.
caloric intake is a huge problem too. You're saying like the percentage of your daily caloric intake that is comprised of the syrup is far higher than it should be.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
So follow Dr. Coffee, buy yourself a nice espresso maker, or in the book, in my coffee book, Coffee is Medicine book, I have ways of brewing. And you and I are going to do a podcast just on that one day, and we'll talk about
Mm-hmm.
filter versus non-filter and the benefits of both, and we'll go through it.
I like that a lot. I want to really reiterate though on what you said, garbage in, garbage out. It's funny though. I always say not all coffee is created equal. And that's kind of what you're saying, right? And isn't that also the case with additives? Like what about a nice, like local raw milk? Just a shot of that in some black coffee. How bad could that be?
So unless you're lactose intolerant, then I think it's fine to have a little milk in your coffee.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, going the grass-fed route is a great route. I think that there are people that go to the extreme of getting unpasteurized milk, and I'm just not sold on the science.
Right. Okay.
I'm just not sold on it. That doesn't mean my mind isn't open to hearing and reading more. But
right. But let's just say a high quality for now.
Sure. So a high quality milk, and I'll be honest, I like to put a little bit of agave syrup into my first cup of the day. I like to put a little milk into my first cup. So my first cup is 2 shots of espresso, purity, of course, and a little bit of agave syrup and a little bit of non-sweetened condensed milk.
Wow, nice. Love it.
Yeah, so that's my first cup, and then the other 50 or 60 cups that I drink per day.
You got to keep those black, man.
Or just black.
Dr. Steve, though, it's kind of striking me on a couple different levels. Like you're saying, you're drinking coffee and you're getting one thing. You're drinking coffee with all of this other crap on top of it. You're getting another thing. That's also the same case with how it's grown, right? If you're getting organic coffee and you're getting all the health benefits, that's great. But these pesticides and these herbicides and stuff that makes it onto coffee, this is the kind of stuff that causes cancer. So when you're drinking a cup of coffee, you could either literally be drinking something that reduces your risk greatly or something that increases your risk greatly. Is it that drastic?
It is absolute, and it's so funny you went there because I was going to lead into the cancer segment, making sure people understood this. So if, God forbid, Fred is diagnosed with cancer, then we know that Fred wants to clean up his diet.
Right.
And when looking at Fred, and Fred says to you, what caused it? There isn't any scientist that can absolutely say it has nothing to do with the type of water we drink or the food we eat, that it's all genetic or viral or whatever. Cancer is a big myriad, and there are inborn errors of metabolism and inborn genetic errors. There's also things that we consume that lead to cells mutating, that leads to cancer, that depresses our immune system so that we can't find cancer bugs and scavenge them up. And so if you don't have cancer, you got to be drinking clean liquids, and if you have cancer, you got to be drinking clean liquids.
Right.
It's the same path on both sides of the coin.
Do you think that the pesticide problem is a significant contributor in the rise of cancer rates?
I absolutely do. I don't have enough science behind me to look somebody in the eye and say it's 100%.
Yeah, I don't think anyone does, but there's a lot of evidence pointing to it.
There sure is, and I think that since coffee is the one thing that we as a doctor can say to a patient, here's the easiest change you can make to improve your health. Well, good quality, purity coffee without the pesticides or the acrylamide or the other factors that, like mold, that lead to ill health, those are things that we need to clean up as well.
So talk to me about cancer and antioxidants. Is there any link there? I mean, I know you're saying it reduces inflammation. The anti-inflammatory properties are always good, but talk to me about the relationships between antioxidants and cancer.
Sure. So let's go back to an earlier podcast in which I just want to remind our listeners, Coffee has more antioxidants in it than any other beverage, than most foods. If we look at coffee compared to the one that everybody touts, which is blueberries,
Blueberries, yeah. Eat blueberries. They'll make you live forever, right? How much does
right?
coffee beat out blueberries?
Blueberries, cranberries, and dark chocolate. Uh, Coffee is heads and shoulders above all three of them. So nothing comes close to coffee.
And that's interesting. Just really quick to touch on that. I don't think you're disparaging those other things. It's probably good to get antioxidants from a couple different sources for different bioavailabilities, right?
Yeah, there was a book I remember from 20 years ago. I knew the guy that wrote it, and it was called Rainbow Diet. I think that was the title of it.
Mm.
And in it, he used to talk about the need to eat things of different color because each colored food, strawberries and the dark green and kale, and each
Mm-hmm.
each different color of food brings something else to the table. So just because we talk about antioxidants in coffee doesn't mean that there aren't other chemicals in coffee and that there aren't other chemicals
Other
in
antioxidant-rich
blueberries
foods.
and
Yeah.
cranberries and dark chocolate,
Right.
etc.
Right. Yeah. So
Um,
it's all good.
we, yeah, they're all good, but the simplest change most of us can make is by changing the quality of the coffee that we're drinking, which means change the quality of the water we're making it with and change the beans that we're using to make the coffee and change the roasting of how the beans are roasted to get the sweet spot for where there's good stuff and not bad stuff. So
That's right.
um, we know, and before I said to you, Jordan, that I can't look anybody in the eye and say there's absolutely a one-to-one link with regard to coffee and cancer. But what I can tell you is that there is an absolute link between free radical formation
Mm-hmm.
and fighting free radicals and antioxidants that block carcinogens that reduce cancer cell growth and promote cancer cell death.
Okay.
So
So
that
so
we
those free
do know.
radicals, that's the bad and the ugly that you were mentioning.
E- Exactly.
And antioxidants play a role in at least combating those one way or another.
Correct. Coffee is a superfood. And the second aspect that coffee does that we know about is reducing inflammation. And you and I have talked in the past that inflammation is the key to all chronic diseases,
Mm-hmm.
that all chronic diseases have a hand in with inflammation as being a cause for them. And by neutralizing the harmful free radicals and reducing inflammation, we reduce the risk of disease related to inflammation, all chronic diseases, including cancer.
So let's talk about numbers here. Let's talk about the different types of cancers that it is known to affect, and then maybe some up and coming stuff. You can give us a little peek into the future. But even the American Institute for Cancer Research has stuff to say on the antioxidants, the phytochemicals, the phenols, the nutrients found in coffee. I feel like it's pretty widely accepted now. If the American Institute for Cancer Research is saying it, do you agree with that?
Yes, coffee plays an important role in helping reduce the risk for many cancers. And I think that the American Institute pointed out um, some good studies relating to different types of cancers and the role coffee would play.
Mm-hmm. So let's start with the big one, breast cancer. There were studies on breast cancer in coffee. Some were called false. You tell me about that.
So researchers at the University of Lund and the Skane University Hospital in Sweden investigated the effect of coffee in women already diagnosed with breast cancer. And they found that depending on the genetic type of breast cancer, drinking at least 2 to 3 cups per day can reduce the risk for developing breast cancer or delaying its onset.
Oh, wow. So it's a delaying process and a prevention process, but it doesn't have any sort of reversal process. It's almost like a retardant, would you say?
Yes. So I found that study really interesting because they were using women that already were diagnosed with breast cancer, and they were measuring certain genetic types of breast cancer. So what this means to me is not only can it help reduce the risk or prevent breast cancer, but because of the inflammatory role of of free radicals,
Mm-hmm.
genetic changes to the DNA take place,
Right.
and therefore, I believe that using 2 to 3 cups of coffee today per day, if you have cancer, breast cancer, can help mitigate other DNA changes down the road.
Wow. That is fascinating.
So, yeah, because we talk in terms of, a 5 year out, somebody that's been clear of cancer for 5 years, that's, the kind of gold standard we set for whether or not a person is in
In remission.
remission.
Right.
And I think the studies show that women that drink 2 to 3 cups of coffee per day after they have their treatments, the remission rate is higher.
That is so fascinating. I'm sure there's people working on that stuff right now. I'm so excited to see the developing science and more studies come out. The one that surprised me that you brought up on this show before makes perfect sense. Oral cancer. I mean, if you're gonna if you're gonna put it down the hatch, you got to imagine that it affects your mouth, right?
It sure does. And I love gargling with my coffee, so
Wow,
I
that's
make sure and
crazy.
swish it around in the mouth and and get it in all the tissues. Digestion starts in the mouth.
Totally.
So Gandhi used to say, chew your drink and drink your food. And I think that the cancer prevention study, which was done by the American Cancer Society, it began in 1982. It found that people who took 4 or more cups of coffee per day were associated with a 49% lower risk of oral cancers
Jeez.
related to
Jeez.
people who did not drink coffee.
I mean,
And
that's nuts.
yeah, this is a true study. What do I mean by it's a true study? So this was the cancer prevention study number 2. There was a study done 2 years before it that said drinking 4 cups of coffee slash cancer risk, oral cancer risk by 39%.
Wow.
So as we've improved with the quality of coffee that's out there, and again, I'm going back to garbage in, garbage out. You got to drink good stuff to get the benefits. As we've improved the quality of our coffee out there, 20 years ago, there was no organic coffee. Now there is. It's still few and far between, but there is. Coffee is still one of the most widely consumed beverages in the world. Contains a variety of antioxidants, polyphenols, and other biologically active compounds which
Mm-hmm.
may protect against the development and progression of all cancers. That's a quote from the American Cancer Society.
Wow. Are the doctors reading this? I mean, why is there any pushback still?
So there's a study out that showed what's the time for some new concept to get into medicine,
Oh, that's right.
and it's 7 years.
Didn't the internet speed that up a little bit? Oh no, it
Yeah,
slowed it down.
It was 11 years, and now it's 7 years. And the
And now it's
internet
back to
did speed
14.
it, and the internet did speed it up, but the internet also slowed it up. What do I mean by that? We are so bombarded by information now
Right.
that we're in information overload.
Totally.
So that's why something like these podcasts on medicinal value of coffee are so important because they're direct. The only message we're trying to sell here is if you can find a quality coffee that's better than Purity, that's the one you want to go to.
Totally.
Until then, Purity's mission is to have a clean coffee. And if you don't use clean water to make your clean coffee, and
you're doing yourself a disservice. The message is drink better coffee. That's
Yep.
what we want to see, you know? And so, I mean, people, I've said this before, but again, it's like, okay, helps your brain, helps your liver, but people need to understand this for the sake of themselves and their loved ones. Cancer kills, how many people does cancer kill a year? It's like 500,000 for various types. I can't think about it off the top of my head.
Right. So if we add up all the types of cancer, it's around 500,600,000 people that die per year
Here
of
in the
cancer. Here in the States.
Wow.
And you just mentioned the brain and the liver. Brain cancer, certain forms of brain cancer, there's a 40% reduction of getting brain cancer with people that drink 3 to 5 cups of coffee a day.
Wow.
One of these days, we're going to really go into depression, you and I. Not that we're going to become depressed, but we're going to jump in and do a podcast really on depression, because my research leads me to believe that in the next 3 to 5 years, depression will overtake all other maladies as being the number one malady that people suffer. It will overtake diabetes.
I look forward to doing that very much. I look forward to going into a depression with you, because I've done a lot of thinking on the subject myself.
I'm sorry if I lost my train of thought. I was thinking of Sanjit Chopra, who's an MD out of Harvard, and he does a lot of work with liver and has a lot in his book. And he's got about 5 or 6 books out now that are wonderful books. But he talks a lot about studies with liver. Got me thinking about liver and liver cancer. People who drink 3 or more cups daily reduce their risk of liver cancer by 50%. 50%.
I'm seeing these numbers between 40 and 60 that stun me. Like I said, the first thing that I can't even get past is how do people not know this? But then the next thing that comes to mind is, what about the rest of those people? Do they not have the genetic markers for it? Were they not drinking good enough coffee? Therefore, they didn't make this study. What do you think about the rest of them?
So, again, I can't look somebody in the eye and say there's one cause for cancer, because there's not.
Mm-hmm.
I give an analogy that there are 2 twin brothers, and one of the twins is a insurance salesman. He smokes. He has alcohol every day at lunch. He's weighs about 350 pounds. He's a type 1 A, go. The other brother is a vegan. Exercise, does yoga,
He's a yogi.
weighs 170, meditates every day,
plays the ukulele.
Yeah, exactly. And if we had a bet on which one is going to either get cancer or die of heart disease, then I'd take the odds in Vegas that it's the insurance salesman brother.
Right.
However, that doesn't have to be the case. May you rest in peace. One of my best friends from school, Rob Radke, passed away of pancreatic cancer, and he was the brother, the meditating vegan.
Did everything right.
Did everything right, and it was horrible. But we got to still do what we can to improve our health. And when you can reduce your risk to cancer by drinking good quality coffee, you should do so. And the other people just have to do everything else they can right too.
That's a good point. We try to really frame things as humans and like stick them into boxes and make sense of them. That's like how our brains work, you know? But the fact is, what you said is really important. You do what you can do. You take care of what you can, and you kind of got to just let go of the rest, you know?
Sure. So that brings up a really good point. Let me make mention about colorectal cancer.
Sure.
So I have arguments with people all the time because, as far as I'm concerned, there are two groups of doctors who actually can cure cancer. One group is gastroenterologists,
Oh,
and
okay.
the other group is dermatologists.
Oh,
So
I
what do
understand what
I
you're
mean?
saying.
What do I
You got
mean
me.
by they cure cancer? So when you get to be 50 years old, you need a colonoscopy.
Hmm.
I don't care that you eat kale. You need a colonoscopy. And if they find a polyp, then the chances of that polyp turning bad and becoming cancerous are elevated. You want to remove it.
Hmm.
When you remove it, you prevent cancer
Wow.
or you cure cancer.
Mm.
Now, if you have a polyp, you should be drinking more coffee.
Wow.
We found that people who drank 1 or 2 cups daily reduced their risk of colon cancer by 22%. And we found that people who drank 3 or more cups reduced their risk by 59%. That's almost double
That's
by
crazy.
drinking 2.
That's crazy.
Drink 4 cups of coffee a day.
Jeez.
So again, it's how it's prepared. It's the water it's used. There again, I've used this in other podcasts with you. The Gestalt, the
Hmm.
sum is greater than the parts.
Yes.
So a cup of coffee I define as a good pull of espresso made with good quality water using a good quality coffee bean that hasn't been over roasted, that was ground recently, wasn't sitting out in the ground bag for hours and hours and hours and days. Um, that's what I'm calling a cup of coffee, a medicinal grade
A
coffee,
cup of medicine. I love it.
a cup of medicine.
Perfect.
Um,
Do you want to touch on
so,
any of these other cancers here before we wrap it up?
sure. Skin cancer. So I said dermatologists are the other ones that cure cancer. You go into a dermatologist, they look at a lesion, they say, let's take that lesion off. You don't get that lesion taken off, and all of a sudden you've got melanoma. Um, and it's starting to spread or getting into the lymph system. So dermatologists, gastroenterologists cure cancer, see them regularly. There was a large cohort for National Institute of Health that was sponsored by AARP, and they found that higher coffee intake reduced the risk of developing melanoma.
Wow.
So if you've been diagnosed with melanoma, drink more coffee. If you haven't been diagnosed with melanoma, drink more
More coffee.
coffee and see your dermatologist regularly. Prostate cancer,
Mm.
uh, mixed,
Huge
mixed,
issues.
huge issue, but there's so much lack of clarity with it because
Okay, give it to us
the
straight. Is this one of the combative areas among the studies here at the road when we intersect a prostate and cancer, the corner of prostate and cancer road?
It is, because prostate cancer is the most frequently diagnosed form of cancer, and it's the second leading cause of cancer death among U.S. men, obviously, since women don't get prostate cancer.
Hmm.
Um, but the problem is that you have this one group of urologists that say the prostate cancer won't kill you, it's slow growing, you'll just die of another something else. And they're saying don't get your PSI checked regularly because there's too many false positives. I disagree, and I don't.
Mm.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I don't care what the studies say. Get your PSI taken once a year. See your urologist. Make sure your prostate isn't too large. If it's large, have an MRI on it. If it's looks like it's got irregular cells, have it biopsied. If you need to, follow the regards of your urologist. But we know that drinking coffee decreases the risk of prostate cancer. And I believe from some studies I've seen that have not been large studies that decreasing your PSI occurs when you drink coffee.
Interesting. And then uterine cancer, again, these are coffee is not is discriminatory against genders.
No, it's not. Coffee does help with reducing the risk for endometrial cancers, and we know that it's a protective against getting uterine cancer.
Wow. So I'm excited to talk about, we're going to give a little sneak preview here. We're going to talk about the California cancer warning on an upcoming episode because I'm sure you have a lot of stuff to say about it and I have a lot of stuff to yell about it. So it's going to be really fun. Make sure to tune in for that, everybody. Dr. Steve, a little wrap up on cancer before we sign off here.
Absolutely. While heart disease is the number one killer of individuals in this country, and if you add up all the cancers and the other three leading causes of disease, heart is still number one. So why is Dr. Steve talking about heart? Did he lose his mind? Does he have brain problems here? The reason I talk about it is the big C is still the scary thing. We don't talk about heart disease the way we talk about it.
You're so right.
We got cancer.
You're so right. We just bang on our chest once to get the pump going and we go on with our day. But the word cancer just sounds so scary.
It is. And, my wife at times will whisper something to me. And I'll go, why are you whispering? It's not cancer.
Right.
And cancer is the scary thing, and we don't know what causes cancer. We keep looking for one magic pill that'll fix cancer, and there isn't. But there is something we can do to help cancer from spreading, to help reduce the risk of getting cancer. We can improve the quality of our diet, our air, and our food.
Mm-hmm.
And the easiest way to increase the quality of our food and our drink is by taking in good quality coffee, and that reduces the risk of cancer and may even help you beat the odds of getting cancer again if you've had it, and may even increase the success of cancer treatments.
The efficacy of the treatments. Interesting.
Yeah.
Across the board, as usual, drink more coffee. And, Steve, I want to say one thing here before we sign off, and maybe I'll leave this in, maybe I won't. I like to just, kind of go off path and get a little heady sometimes. Why is cancer so scary? Is it because, like you said, we don't quite understand it?
So part of the reason it's scary is because the treatment for cancer is so horrible.
Good point.
And we know that if somebody gets cancer, then the chemotherapy is going to have them retching. I mean, we're making strides in progress, but it's going to have them retching. It's going to have them losing their hair. There's always going to be a stigma. Oh, Fred, he got cancer.
Right.
You have a heart attack. They put in a stent. Okay,
get on with it.
Move on.
Zero empathy.
It's not the big C.
You're right, the big C.
We got to talk behind his back. He's got cancer. I mean, and the treatment that you go through, the radiation has its
right.
bad things.
Right. You're right.
So cancer just. And a lot of cancers kill you, pancreatic cancer. Alex Trebek was just diagnosed with it, and he was on TV saying, I'm going to beat it, and everybody pray for me because I'm going to beat it. I didn't believe him. I'll pray for him. I'll think good thoughts and hope he does beat it, but he's not going to beat it. People don't beat pancreatic cancer.
Yeah, it's a really bad
You
one.
know,
My grandfather-in-law went really quickly to pancreatic cancer. Really, really, and that's what it's deeply touching to people. That's why I like doing this show too, and why I want to spread the news to doctors specifically, and MDs and doctors of any kind who are listening to this show, is that it deeply connects with you, Dr. Steve. It deeply connects with me, and especially my wife. And I think it deeply connects with, most of these doctors' patients in one way or another. So thank you for doing this. You do not need to be here doing this. So let me just go ahead and thank you for helping us take a little bite out of cancer. You know what I mean?
my pleasure to help people. I'm a healer. That's what I do. And I want to thank you very much for your time today, Jordan River.
ibleedcoffee.com, Dr. Coffee's website. Check out everything he's got going on over there. Thank you all so much for listening. This is Jordan River and Dr. Coffee signing off for the Coffee Health and Science podcast, saying we'll see you next time.